One of the foundational concepts of risk is probability, also known as the language of uncertainty. Let's look at the concept of price risk with an example of the average monthly corn prices in the United States. Prices of agricultural commodities typically vary around a long-run average, but do not trend up or down, as shown on the chart from the University of Illinois. Market year average, or MYA, prices represent the average price received for corn by all U.S. farmers and is calculated by the United States Department of Agriculture's National Agricultural Statistics Service. 3 periods are illustrated in this chart. First, prices averaged $1.17 per bushel from 1960 to 1973. Then, prices received a new higher plateau in 1973. U.S. exports began growing in the late 1960s due to several evolutions in U.S. policy. In 1973, the Soviet Union made large grain purchases, reversing trade policy, thereby opening more markets to global trade. From 1973 to 2005, corn prices averaged $2.36 per bushel. Sometimes corn prices were considerably above the $2.36 average, as occurred in 1995, when corn prices were $3.24 per bushel. Some believed that prices had reached a new higher plateau, but they had not. Corn prices again went below the $2.36 average, falling to $1.94 per bushel in 1998. Finally, prices again moved to a new higher plateau in 2006, primarily due to the growth of corn used in ethanol production. From 2006 to 2020, corn prices averaged $4.22 per bushel. The line chart displayed represents the average monthly U.S. corn price received by farmers over the past 5 years, from 2019 through 2023. In the past 10 years, from 2014 through 2023, in the 10-year chart, the average monthly corn price is represented by a relatively flat line from 2015 through 2020, with an average of $3.54 per bushel. However, since 2020, you can see a large variation in corn prices, which has resulted in an increase in a higher plateau of the average corn price received by U.S. farmers to $6.03 per bushel. Let's review the prices received for corn over the past 5 years, or the period of 2019 through 2023. Please grab a piece of paper and a pencil or pen for this exercise. Feel free to pause this video if you need to find these items. I want you to think about the following questions and record the answers on your piece of paper. Don't take too long to answer, just jot down the price per bushel that first comes to mind. What has been the very lowest corn price received in the past 5 years? What is the average corn price over the past 5 years? What has been the very highest corn price received in the past 5 years? In case you were wondering, here are the answers to those questions using the monthly average prices of corn received by U.S. farmers during the period of 2019 through 2023. The very lowest corn price received in the past 5 years was $3.12 in August of 2020. The average corn price in the past 5 years was $5.02. The very highest corn price received in the past 5 years was $7.38 in June of 2022. Let's move on to exercise 2. Next, I want you to think about the following questions and record the answers on your piece of paper. Don't take too long to answer, just jot down the percentage that comes to mind. What percent of the time do you believe each of your price estimates from exercise 1 occurred? You could also think about it, how many times did the price occur over this period? What percent of the time did the lowest price or similar low prices occur in the last 5 years? What percent of the time did the average price occur? What percent of the time did the very highest price or similar high prices occur in the past 5 years? In case you were wondering, here are the answers to those questions, using the monthly average prices received for corn for the period of 2019 through 2023. The percent of the time the lowest prices were between $3 and $3.75 was 26.67%. The percent of the time the average prices were between $4 and $6 in the past 5 years was 40%. And the percent of the time the very highest prices were between $6.50 and $7.50 was 33.3%. Finally, let's move on to exercise 3. I would like you to draw a graph on your piece of paper similar to the one that you see on your screen. Now, let's plot the answers you wrote down from exercise 1 of the monthly corn prices and exercise 2 of how many times did the corn price occur. Place a dot on the chart that corresponds with your answers. Now connect the dots. You should have drawn a mountain-shaped distribution, also known as the distribution curve. In any given marketing year or over a period of time, prices will often assume the shape of a mound. In this bar chart, the U.S. historical corn price received by farmers over the past 5 years, or 60 monthly prices, is shown. The bar height represents the number of times that a specific price occurred. As noted in exercise 1, the monthly price per bushel of corn during the past 5 years ranged from a minimum of $3.12 to a maximum of $7.38 per bushel. This is a large difference or range in these prices of $4.26 a bushel. The average price per bushel of corn during this 5-year span was $5.02, with a standard deviation of $1.37 per bushel. Certainly, there is great variation in prices from year to year, and also within the same marketing year from month to month. This chart represents the distribution curve for the monthly price of corn received by U.S. farmers between 2015 and 2020, and shows this mountain shape that can be described by normal distribution. However, as you can see in this chart, the distribution curve for the monthly price of corn received by U.S. farmers between 2019 and 2023 is not a mountain shape. You will notice that there is a long tail to the right side of the distribution, which is the result of a large number of monthly prices higher than the average price of $5.02 per bushel. Part of your efforts in reducing price risk is simply being aware of the potential outcomes of corn price that could occur. In this case, it is assumed that the corn price since 2019 may be an indicator of what the next couple of years may potentially offer. While certainly not foolproof, history can often be a good indicator of the future. This graph shows the normal distribution of monthly corn prices received from 2019 through 2023. The monthly corn price fell in between the price range of $3.64 and $6.40 per bushel 68% of the time. For a limited percentage of the time, the monthly corn prices were either above $6.40 or below $3.64 per bushel. The 84th percentile price of $6.40 should tell you that 8 out of 10 times the corn price per bushel fell below the price of $6.40, as shown on this graph. Only for limited times, or 16%, were monthly corn prices above the price of $6.40. This graph shows the normal distribution of average price of corn received between 2019 and 2023, which was $5.02 per bushel. Half of the time over the past 5 years, the monthly corn price was either above or below the average of $5.02. The normal distribution is the foundation of price risk. The price values near the center of the distribution have a high probability of occurring, as shown in the previous graphs. While higher and lower prices can occur, the probability of their occurrence is lower than the average price. Risk management is about ensuring an outcome. Price risk management is ensuring what the outcome of the price will be. Let's take a look at a few examples that describe price risk management and ensuring the outcome of the corn price received. As this diagram shows, a visual way to think about price risk management is trying to squeeze in the normal distribution, i.e., ensuring an outcome of the price. By squeezing the distribution, you have a higher and higher probability of getting a more average price instead of a lower price. For example, if you lock in a price by hedging, then you have squeezed this distribution by assuring a locked-in price. Price risk management is about changing the distribution of prices. This graph shows what happens to the distribution when you establish a price floor. In this example, a price floor established at $3.64 per bushel eliminates potential outcome of receiving a corn price that would be below this value. You are limiting the potential negative outcome by establishing a price floor and allowing for more beneficial results, i.e., higher corn price per bushel to be received. You are guaranteeing that you will not receive a price less than $3.64 per bushel. We have just covered the basics of statistics. You should have a basic understanding of the concept of risk, as it illustrates that there is more than one potential outcome resulting from any event, and that there is a different likelihood or probability associated with each outcome. Although you may not recognize it by name, you will intuitively understand the interpretation of normal distribution. And in fact, make decisions based on a normal distribution most every day. For example, you make the decisions on when to make hay based on the probability of rain. The goal is to reduce your price risk and limit the potential negative outcomes while taking advantage of those positive outcomes.